Hey, Trailblazers, this is Jason, your host of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. Before we jump into our latest episode, I've got some incredible news for you. Are you gearing up for your next big hike or backpacking trip? Well, we at Trailblazing Texas podcast have partnered up with Trekker Joe's, the ultimate Texas outfitter, to bring you something I feel absolutely special. Listeners, you of the Trailblazing Texas podcast can now get a one-time 15% off their gear purchases at Trekker Joe's. That's right, whether you're a first-time customer at Trekker Joe's or a repeat customer like me, you can save big and hit the trails well prepared. So upon checkout, use code TTP15 to claim your 15% discount and in the process support an amazing local Texas business. So happy trails and don't forget to tell your hiking buddies. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Or I get a lot of questions that, how much water do you take on a hike and how much this and how
Mhm.
much that? There's general rules, and I could tell you what I do because it works
Mhm.
for me, right? And it's because of years and years and years of being in situations and testing this and testing that, seeing how I respond to this and what my requirements are, because everybody's different. So I think, to the listeners, I don't want to say push yourself, but push yourself and
Yeah.
really start to understand you, what all these aspects mean to you and how you handle it. Like we were just, again, at Guadalupe. I got cocky. So we were out in the backcountry for 2 nights. And, you're out in Guadalupe Mountains, in Arizona, there's no water. So
Mhm.
it's big carries, right? You're carrying 7, 8 liters probably for a 2 nighter. But I started thinking like, okay, so I've been here. This is like my 19th trip. It's going to be hot. We're going to have initially a lot of elevation gain, and then it's going to kind of, be about 2,000 feet the next day, and then it's just going to be all downhill ish. So 2 liters up, a liter over, 2 liters up, cook a liter with, food, coffee, and all that. Then a
Mhm.
liter to the next campsite, and then I could take a cup for coffee in the morning, or maybe I'll bypass coffee. I'll just eat a bar so I don't need water then, and just a liter down. So I was like, okay, I got it down to the ounce.
Yeah.
So I took 5 liters. I ran out of water on the I officially didn't run out of water, but I only had like half a liter left on the second day going to it was the second day going to the second camp, the that
Mhm.
night heading so we were heading over to Bush, and I got confused with the bottles that I had. So I had a full bottle, and I thought that was the extra one, but I got mistaken. So I was
Mhm.
drinking that one, and then I was sitting there talking to Henning, and I started pulling out my bottles, and I'm like, wait a minute, I drank the wrong bottle. I only have half a liter left. And so then I just started panicking because, it's 80, 90 degrees outside, even though we're at
Mhm.
elevation, so it doesn't really feel that. And there was a breeze. But I started panicking, and then like my body just kind of started shutting down. Like, I think just because the mental processing, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Thank God my hiking partner, Henning, is a beast. And, he's carrying like 9 liters of water, and so he had an extra, probably 2 liters for the way down. So then I felt better. So we get to the campsite, and so I'm like, probably have like, about 2 inches of water in a smart water bottle left.
Mhm.
And so I'm just waiting for, because he knows I'm out of water, and so I'm just waiting for him to go, hey man, did you want that liter now?
or that liter and a half now. And so I didn't want to ask for it because I'm dying of thirst. And, we're sitting here and I'm just like, do. And, they're talking and we're setting up. That night we cowboy camped, so we didn't set up tents. But we're just chilling and, like I'm dying of thirst. And I just looked at her and I go, look, I'm going to go ahead and drink this. I go, after that, can I have that other liter? And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I know purposely he was keeping it from me because he just wanted to see how long I would go. So shortly after that, I got the trail name 5 Liter.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I will never be that stupid again. Like all I had to do was, just throw in another liter and I'd have been
Hmm.
perfect. And probably 6 liters would have been too little because what happens if something happened and we got stuck out there or somebody was injured, it would be the 6 liters was probably just enough to get me back down in a comfortable state.
Yeah.
I probably should have backpacked with 7 or I usually camel a liter before I start
Hmm.
hiking, and maybe that would have impacted it in a positive way. But anyway, so I ran
Yeah.
out of water and I was embarrassed and I was struggling, and he just let me struggle for a while because he's a jerk if you're listening.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't have to be like the official most iconic hikes in Arizona, but like just in your opinion, you have someone, and I guess in the mindset you have someone traveling to Arizona. What do you think are some cool hikes that you would recommend to someone visiting, and also like what do you think makes them special?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what kind of hiking you like to do, or if you're trying to try something new, because there are so many different ones here. If you're in the Phoenix area, you're looking to do quick, 1, 2 hour hikes. Usually I can do Camelback, Piestewa Peak, and a couple of other ones out there in like an hour, hour and a half.
Hmm.
If you're a little bit slower of a hiker, maybe 2, 3 hours. Um, Flat irons, obviously, if you are an experienced hiker or just crazy and want to push yourself to some extreme, then you go tackle that one. I can usually do that one in 3 hours. That's pretty quick though. I'm obviously not the most athletic and the quickest, so there's plenty of people that can beat that time. But I've passed people that were at their 6 hour mark at that, not even the halfway point, and then pass them on the way back down. So it's not like there's a race. Uh, you could take all day, and just kind of work your way through it, and then you get up there and you have the most excellent view of all the Phoenix area, and you have this sense of accomplishment. Then once you get up to the top, getting back down, is a little hard on your knees, but for the most part, your breathing's going to be fine. You're now on the downhill slope, so the stress is kind of off. You're not as worried about if you're going to make it to the top or not. So, Flatiron's definitely one of the ones I would recommend for someone that's a little more experienced or just really crazy and just pushing it. But
And
yeah,
what do you mean by a little more experience? Do they need to have any kind of technical ability, like class 3 experience, or
no.
like just kind of anybody that hikes would be fine?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of bouldering and steeper elevation. So I have asthma. That's one of the things that really kind of holds me back being able to do the stuff like that. So I work through that as one of my hurdles. But a big one is rolling an ankle, breaking a leg, because everything's rocky. On the way down, you're kind of like stepping down things that are taller than a normal step. So it's easy to
Hmm.
kind of misstep. Obviously, there's a guy, I think he's 92, 93. He does flat iron. I'm not sure if he's doing it daily, but he does it at least 3 or 4 times a week. That will do that. That they hike that every day to every 4 times a week at least. And This guy's 93. So you could do it at any age. He
Yeah.
obviously takes his time, does a little bit slower. He likes to kind of chit chat with people. He's kind of an icon.
Yeah.
Everybody likes to say they've seen Flatiron Jim. Um, so yeah, it's definitely doable to anyone that wants to do it. Obviously, if you're on the heavier side, out of shape, kind of, you're going to struggle, but it is still possible. It's
Mhm.
not that anybody couldn't do that hike, but it's mental, because you get over there and then you just start going straight up. So you're looking at that thinking, can I make it up that? And then you just kind of like take each, foot or couple feet at a time, and
Yeah.
you go through it, and then next thing you know, you're at the top. So it is a little overwhelming. I think the hardest part for me is obviously just the breathing and that elevation change at such a quick rate. So I struggle with that. Obviously, I've built up my leg strength. That could be a weakness for some other people. So it's just kind of, know your bounds, know whether that first part's kicking your butt, know when to turn around and just say, okay, maybe not today, maybe another day. So
Hmm.
it's possible. There's not a lot of stuff that I would say the average people can't do in Arizona. There's definitely some areas where if you're afraid of heights, maybe not for you. Um,
Yeah.
there's Picacho Peak is a really good one. It's out near Casa Grande, and that thing has the most heartbreaking trail, because you climb all the way up and you're like, you feel like you're almost to the top, and that all you're going to have to do is skirt around the mountain over here and there'll be a nice trail leading up to the top. No, you get up to the top and then all of a sudden, bam, it takes you like halfway back down the mountain on this really
Oh,
steep, rocky, like mined out area of the mountain that has chains and stuff to hold on to. And you
so you
that breaks
lose
your
all the
heart.
elevation, all the
Yeah.
elevation that you gained, and I hate that.
Yeah, and then you climb up, and then the next part is another steep incline going up with a lot of chains and a lot of parts where you're kind of like hanging out over the edge. And so a lot of people will be, if you're scared of heights or sketched out, that one's maybe not for you. But so there's little parts of it where you can kind of work through if you're afraid of it. It's not like those crazy, I forgot what they're called, but it's all cables where you're thousands of
Yeah.
feet above stuff, just kind of dangling there strapped to a cable.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but it definitely is an interesting hike. And once you get to the top of that one again, you got a nice view of that whole area. I've never had an ugly sky when I've been up there. So just, it's a good time. You get up there. And then the way down's always, that's another challenge, because you're going to have to do that again. Now you got to climb up that part where you went straight down, and do it all in reverse. So, yeah, that's one of the fun ones.
So are these hikes? Like sometimes you hear, like in Colorado, like Long's Peak or something, like where there's fatalities, people falling, slipping,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. Are any of these hikes have those types of scenarios?
I can't think. I mean, obviously, there's people are going to get injured. There's going to be the
Yeah.
ankle rolls and major falls and stuff like that. But I don't hear of a lot of people falling off the mountain or falling to their death or anything like that out in this area so much. I mean, there's obviously
Yeah.
there's going to be spots where people are going to go, not necessarily around guardrails or anything. It's not like that's a huge thing, but there are areas where it's kind of like common knowledge. You don't, get that close to the danger zone, and they'll obviously step a little bit too far outside the bounds, and maybe not be all that experienced at it, and you'll see some falls there. But
Yeah, I think that happens in the Grand Canyon a lot, right? People
hmm
kind of go to the place where they shouldn't for that super picture, and
yeah,
then all of a sudden, choo.
yeah, it's easy that you don't know how that earth that's on the edge right there is holding up. There's a
Yeah.
lot of just loose gravel across all this because most of the rocks are eroding and crumbling.
Yeah.
So, especially right there on the Grand Canyon, you have all that crumbly rock right there on the edge. It looks like it's flat and it's just going to be a nice spot to stand, but it's actually kind of sloped. So then you get into that panic mode where you start slipping, and in some areas there's nothing below you.
Yeah.
That
I,
that's one of the what's that?
no, I think that happens almost every year where some people fall,
Yeah.
and it's not just one. It seems to be that it happens. I don't want to say quite often, but more than you would like to
Hmm.
think that it happens. Like people just trying to get that spectacular picture, and then. So, have you been hiking out the Grand Canyon at all?
Not a lot. I've
No.
I've done like that little sky view. I think this is what it's called. Um, Went out there, did a couple trails many years ago. I've been out there a couple times, but I know you have to get a permit to do the rim trails and
Rim to rim.
everything, and I'm not really good about getting permits. I'm
Yeah.
I'm more of a spontaneous hiker. I'll just kind of wake up, and next thing you know, I'm at the Grand Canyon. And
Yeah.
so I don't, those types of things, the Havasupai and everything, are amazing hikes that I might never get to do unless somebody else plans it for me and just says, "Hey, come along." So
Yeah.
that's always the hopes is I'll have somebody that's super interested in planning a trip like that, and then I'll just get to kind of tag along as the nice handsome guy with the beard. But I don't know. We'll see if it ever happens.
What always like I think okay, I've been to the Grand Canyon. It's spectacular. It's probably one of the few places that I've been to where you almost literally have to remind yourself to breathe, right? It's just so spectacular, so overwhelming with beauty, but there's just so many people,
Hmm.
and that just turns me off.
Yeah. That's honestly why I don't like doing a lot of the more popular things is you get into Sedona and you go to one of the more popular hikes, you're not going to get a picture without a person in the background, or you're going to be sitting there for hours waiting on a break in people. Granted, people are nice enough; they'll let you take your pictures and stuff. But there's times where you want to get the picture of the subway in Sedona, and you'll have people kind of like standing there, not realizing like that they're in your picture. Obviously, they're not doing it to be rude, but
Yeah.
there's just so many people on those popular trails that that's one of the things. If you're not into pictures and you just want to go to do it and see it and have a nice time out in the wilderness, yeah, they're awesome. But if you're trying to like, get a nice picture that you could post on Instagram or just kind of get a moment of peace in that area by
Yeah.
yourself, it's not happening. I do get pretty lucky on a lot of those where I end up by myself, but I do often I'll hike it, at a time that's not super popular. So,
Yeah. But it's funny, like, and you're 100% right. You see those people making video, like Instagram videos, and it's like Instagram, and it's like a beautiful picture versus reality, and it's like,
hmm
it's the picture that they're trying to take, but it's like thousands of people around them, and they're,
hmm
so
yeah.
I just, I'm so, I'm so selfish with my experiences, and I'm such a Texas homer that. And I've hiked the Swiss Alps, the French Alps. I've hiked in Germany. I've hiked in a lot of places, and I love Texas. And if like even said last night, like if you said right now, Jason, I will finance your next 100 hiking trips. 99 of them will be at probably Guadalupe Mountains, and one of them will be at Caprock.
Yeah.
Because Guadalupe Mountains, it's the least visited national park in the United States, or one of them. And I like the kind of the black sheep of the family. So as national parks go, you have Big Bend, who's it's in Texas, very popular, lots of people. And yes, you can get out to sections where
hmm
there's no one at, but like getting into the gate and the crowds of people and checking in and all that stuff, it's a turnoff. So I go to Guadalupe because I don't have to talk to anybody, and where I'm at, I don't ever see anybody. Same thing with Palo Duro. So Palo Duro is probably one of the most popular uh, state parks in Texas. But I go an hour south to Caprock. I can
Hmm.
pretty much see the same thing, and I may run into a bison,
Yeah.
and there's nobody out there, and so yeah, I'm just a Texas homer, and I don't enjoy crowds. So yeah, the Grand
Yeah.
Canyon would be spectacular, and the rim to rim and all that
Hmm.
fancy stuff, but like just the number of people, maybe doing it in the winter might
Yeah.
be a little different, but yeah, I just don't want to be around a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do most of my hiking by myself. I prefer to be by myself. I do have a couple friends that I'll hike with every now and then. Usually, we're off exploring something that they wanted to check out, which I'm more than happy to tag along on nice, cool adventures. So, of course, I'm down for that. But my true passion is honestly just kind of getting out in the middle of nowhere by myself, just kind of wandering around, seeing what I see, and just really
Yeah.
not having any pressure of, oh, I'm going to be going to this thing and trying to find this thing, and then I get there and there's a bunch of people or it's not what I expected. So just kind of getting out after work, especially, just letting that stress from the day kind of melt off as I hike around with no pressure. I'm just out there doing nothing. Um,
Hmm.
and I've gotten to a point where I don't feel it in my legs. Really, the only thing is, do I want to hike in the dark right now? Do
Yeah.
I feel like, because I don't have any real limit. I can go hike and then just take a shower the next morning and go to work if I wanted to, and
Hmm.
just hike all through the night because I'm usually hiking 10 minutes from my house, from my starting point at least. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the big things is just like figuring out where that line's going to be drawn. And usually kind of lately it's been like, okay, it's been dark for a little bit. I'm not really seeing anything anymore. This is more just traveling back to the truck kind of weather here.
Yeah, you're out by your house, and it's 12 o'clock at night, and you're out hiking, and you hear your wife, "Get home now! The street lights have come on."
Well, it's funny.
Yeah,
One time I was actually right here outside our backyard. There's a mountain there, and obviously it's far away. It doesn't look far, but it really is. It's super far away. So I told her, I was like, hey, go. I got the binos sitting outside. Go out there and look through them and see if you could see me. And of course, she didn't see me.
yeah.
She couldn't figure me out. But yeah, like I look outside and I could see Flatiron. So that's just it's a awesome view. And having that ability to just kind of go out there daily, that's a lot of why I don't do a lot of backpacking, honestly, is because I can go do a day hike, maybe sleep in my truck or something and do something the next day. I don't have to necessarily backpack out and s- you know to get to a lot of the things I need to get to. There's obviously a few backpacking trips where you're going to be backpacking because you can't make it there in a day and back. Revis Ranch is one of those. It's you know it's one of those where you can spend a day hiking and then a couple days out there camping, and then your last day is always obviously just going to be hiking back out. But those are the only types of hikes really I'll do much backpacking on, is something that takes a little while to get into out in the middle of nowhere.
And these hikes that you described, do you need? I mean, I guess it's not. I mean, they're not state parks or anything, so you can just show up, first come, first serve, parking and stuff. You don't need permits or anything, and you just head out.
So it just depends. You have a lot of national forest, and then you have state parks, you have county parks. Um, what else is there? There's BLM land, state trust land. So, like state trust, you buy, I think it's $12 a year. Don't quote me on that. Um,
Hmm.
and that allows you to be able to go use state trust land for hunting and camping and stuff like that. So, 14-day stays pretty much everywhere is the max. BLM land doesn't require anything. There's a few places like over near my house. There's Bulldog Canyon, where I think you pay $6 for 6 months of access to it, which has off roading and a lot of hiking and stuff like that. The National Forest, we have what we call a Tonto Pass. So those are required in some areas are free. And then there's the America the Beautiful. And being a veteran, I get the lifetime free military one, which I've used until now. It just looks like I stuck it in the microwave and cooked it, because
Yeah.
the Arizona sun, just leaving that on your dash all day, has cooked it. It's literally like brown, like it's
Uh,
been melted. So, that one saves me, gets me into all the national parks and stuff, and a lot of a lot of other places accept it, but there's the state parks do 50% off military. They're usually just, it depends on which one you're going to a lot. But like the Lost Dutchman State Park, which is where Flatiron is, I think it's $10, something like that. $10, $7. I think it's $7
yeah.
for a daily pass. So there's several areas. It just depends on where you're going. There's plenty of areas you can hike for free. It really just kind of depends. That's another benefit of the Onyx hunt, is I can tell what area I'm in. It'll tell me if that's a state park or private property. So I can actually tell which pass do I need. And I
Okay.
keep all of them on hand, so that if I'm rolling through, I know getting to an area of the superstitions, you're going to pass through um, state trust land, BLM land, and national forest. So it depends. If you want to go hike this trail, you have to have a state trust um, pass. If you want to go hike over here, now you have to have a Tonto pass. So that's another benefit of having the Onyx hunt and paying the I think I pay like $100 a year to have all the states, and it shows me all the property, and a lot of different other things. But yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
one of the things, is it helps you know where you're at. Can you be there? Are you on native land? Because there's a lot of places where it kind of checkerboards between BLM or national forest and reservation. And so it's, you got to know if you're allowed to be there and what passes you do need. And there are several of them. I did hear now they're going to start doing an annual off-road pass or something that you're going to have to do for um, side by sides and stuff like that. I think there's
Okay.
just a bunch of kind of deterioration happening with a lot of areas, so they're having to do a lot of cleanup in areas from people abusing the land. So they're
Yeah.
gonna start charging for it, so they can start getting people to take care of it.
Yeah. So it seems like if anybody wants to go hike in Arizona, and we're going to get into it probably a little bit later, um, there needs to be some research done with
Hmm.
maybe connecting to Facebook groups, maybe asking some questions about certain hikes, and is it part of a state park, or is it part of some of these other organizations where you would have to get um, and that's what happened to me in Washington. Like
Hmm.
I guessed it was a state park. I showed up. There was no person there to collect money. There was no electronic way to pay.
Hmm.
And so like I'm texting my friend John, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? He goes, yeah, you just, you would go online to this one website and pay this and print out the thing. I go, yeah, but I'm already here.
Yeah,
So I paid online, and then I just wrote on a piece of paper that I paid, here's the order number, and just left it on my dash. But I mean, no one even came by, and
yeah.
if it, and just visiting, like it just felt so overwhelming paying fines and stuff. It would just be
Hmm.
nice just to not have to worry about any of that stuff.
The ferries in Washington, I didn't realize that you had to reserve one of them. So, or a certain area that I was trying to go to up there, that you had to utilize ferries to get back and forth. I showed up and they're like, "Oh, do you have a reservation?" I said, "No," and it was like 5 o'clock. It was like 5 p.m. And they're like, "Oh, well, there's one coming at like 7, but you're probably not going to get on that one. So you'll probably get on the one at 9, or you're just not going to get on one." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, the amount of people that catch the ferries, from
Hmm.
um, I don't remember. It's like the Seattle area to I don't remember. My daughter lives
Yeah,
up there
like.
too. She lives in Bremerton, and
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, if you don't have it reserved, and the amount of people that are going back and forth for work and other reasons, you're not you're not getting on. And then also, like, you want to park at a ferry, even if you have a reservation, the parking is
Uh-huh.
horrible. Like, we drove around, we had reservations and we could never find parking, so we was like, "Oh, forget it. I'm just gonna drive. I'm tired of this."
No, I was gonna say there's no other way for you to get around on those islands unless you have your own boat. So you're
Yeah,
stuck.
yeah, yeah. If you're getting on those island hopping stuff, you better have reservations. And also, like, how do you know that? Like, if no one tells you, or if you don't show
Hmm.
up and they're like, "No, you have reservations." So, like, that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do, these type of episodes, is to at least maybe not answer all the questions, but get people thinking that, okay, I want to go hike in Arizona or Washington or Colorado. These are some of the things that I definitely need to think about ahead of time
Hmm.
or plan for, because yeah, I've been into, it really, you get to a trailhead in Colorado for a 14er, and it's 2 in the morning because you think that's perfect, and you're
Yeah.
parking 2 miles away from the trailhead because it's so packed,
Hmm.
and you should have been there like at 11 o'clock at night. So,
Yeah.
but we kind of talked about some of the iconic hikes around you. Do you have any like lesser known gems that you've discovered or found that are probably not as popular, but still you would get the most, I don't know, say bang for your buck, or you'd still get the experience, but they're just not as popular?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the like the lowlands types of hikes. That's kind of where I like to do a lot of my just daily evening type of hikes. Um, Out in like Butcher Jones, there's a trail that kind of um, travels along the edge of the lake. So you kind of got the lake on one side of you. If you've got desert landscape on the other side of you, all kinds of birds and stuff. So that one's kind of a nice one. It's not a whole lot of elevation change. There is some, but you can kind of stop and turn around at any point and just kind of call it a day. So you're not really glued to anything. But yeah, that's kind of one of the better ones. That's kind of easy to get to and not really do too much physical activity on. um a lot of the stuff that I do is just so off trail that I don't really kind of tend to do some of those easier lesser known hikes. I'm
Yeah.
out doing more kind of roaming around, finding my own deal. Again, that kind of comes with respecting the land and not trashing it as you're walking around. Um, but yeah, no, I don't really. I'm not a great source for for trails, honestly, just
Yeah.
because I am so spontaneous and not really destination oriented.
Mm. So then what do if we wanted, if I'm coming to you and I wanted to head out to Arizona, what is the biggest differences between the southern part of Arizona and the northern part of Arizona? And what do you think would be more spectacular?
Yeah. So okay. So yeah, you have northern Arizona. You've got Flagstaff. If you're gonna call that northern, it's still plenty far from the border up there. But the Sedona area is amazing. You're gonna get pretty much anywhere you go there, you're going to find, the beauty of Sedona. It's very popular, so you're gonna have to struggle with a lot of that too. But um, yeah, kind of circling back on that. Um, Man, I lost my train of thought. Uh,
It, but like, is there a big difference between the northern and southern, or is it still just desert?
No, yeah, no, that you have pine forest,
Hmm.
even as low as down here in Payson. You have pine forest and kind of sporadic desert spread all over the state. Honestly, you go down south in like the Tucson areas, you get into some of those sky islands. You're going to have cold weather at the tops of these places. You're going to have pine forest. Then you get out and the Grand Canyon area, you don't see a single tree for the whole day. Um, you can get into the southwest side and just be just all dunes and just sandy areas of barren desert. Phoenix here, you have canyons and different levels of desert. You have where there's Palo Verde trees, or you have where you're just walking through fields of cholla or prickly pear. So you have a huge change in that demographic of all the landscapes across the whole state, and you find little pockets of it everywhere. So even though we kind of more associate the northern side with being the cooler side and like the pine tree side, you do find that throughout the whole state. It's actually kind of surprising sometimes when you get into an area and you're not really expecting it to all of a sudden turn into a pine forest. Then you'll drive for 10 minutes and now you're out in the middle of just a bunch of scrub brush, and you're like, where
Yeah.
did the pine forest go? So yeah, I mean, we do kind of like associate those differently of like the southern side being more desertous. But I mean, when you start looking at you go up closer, you get to Utah, you're back in the desert again, even after you've passed all those pine forests again. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of differences as far as the topography goes. You have certain areas that are just good for a certain thing, but those are so spread out that you could take a Sedona trip and pines, and you're back into just the desertous area, and all within like an hour period of time. So yeah, there's really not that like fine, just spread out like you see where Texas, it's like all the mountains are going to be on the west side. You're not going to
Yeah.
really have anything on that east side. So yeah, here you're going to have mountains throughout the whole state. You're going to have all those different temperature ranges throughout the whole state. And you get into Mount Graham, which is near Safford. We started at the bottom of that mountain at 94. Granted, we were going up as the sun was going down, but get up to the top, and I think it was like 49 degrees that night. So, you start off hiking hot all day, sweating, and then now you're freezing. So
Yeah.
just by climbing one little mountain.
So, what is your favorite region to go hiking in?
I do really like the superstitions. It
Yeah.
is a lot of cat's claw. It's a lot of, like no shade. Um, but I do really enjoy it. I do like getting up into like the Payson area too, and getting up into those pines and getting along all the streams and creeks and stuff. Because you definitely don't have any of that down here, and the superstitions. There's unless it's been raining a lot, you're not going to get any streams or rivers or anything. We do have the Salt River, which is awesome to hike along too. There's plenty of trails along there. But yeah, it's again, forget where I was going with that. Just start rambling on and forget where I was heading with something.
That's how you know it's a good podcast.
Yeah.
Kind of what your favorite region was and to get into hiking. And when
Okay.
you say, was it the Flatirons?
Yeah, Flatiron is the top of the mountain. That's more of like a gift for myself every now and then to do Flatiron. That's not really my go-to. That's just kind of maybe once or twice a year special treat for me. But you get into kind of more the back country of the superstitions, and there's
So the superstitions, those are linked to a state park for access?
so well, for the Flatiron, the easiest way to do it is to park at the Lost Dutchman State Park. That takes your travel, your hiking, your from the other areas, cuts down your hiking areas. But there are plenty of areas to hike. Flatiron's not in the state park. It's just the best place to park so that you're kind of cutting out some of those useless miles.
Yeah.
But I think it does add like an extra 2 miles to your travel if you park out off the First Water Trail.
Okay. So now I kind of want to just kind of focus on some safety aspects of hiking in Arizona. And I know we've kind of touched on, maybe not in a whole lot of detail, but what should hikers think about, or what are some of your safety tips that hikers should keep in mind while exploring in Arizona?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people have fear of mountain lions and rattlesnakes and stuff like that. And although you aren't going to run into them that often, I've never seen a mountain lion on a hike. I see traces of them, so I know they're around, but I've never seen one on a hike. Um, Seen a couple bears, seen tons of rattlesnakes, obviously, but I'm not looking for those rattlesnakes. Those if you see that many rattlesnakes just hiking around on a trail, then you're a magnet for them because they're not that. I see them every now and I'm out searching for them
If
actively.
I
So
had a nickel for every time you posted a rattlesnake picture or video, I would no longer need to work. So when you say that, I want to call BS.
yeah, to me it's the total opposite. I'm out dying looking for those things. Like we'll spend a whole night. I hiked until 1 a.m. during the middle of the summer one night and had to be at work the next day. And yeah, just looking for snakes. And we did find a ton that night. That's the only reason why it lasted so long. But went out like a week later, didn't find a single snake. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You find them sometimes, but yeah, I mean, like kind of going back to the point, like those animals do exist out there. It is dangerous. If you run into a mountain lion, you have some risks there. But those things don't really happen all the time. So that you got to keep it in mind. You got to be kind of keeping an eye out for it. You're not going to head towards the danger if you're not ready for it. Obviously, um, bear spray is something that a lot of people will bring with them in areas where there are bears. I've never carried it before. I've seen two bears maybe hiking. It's not a common thing. So
Yeah,
I know that's it is a real safety issue, but it's really not a concern. It's something to kind
yeah,
of keep in the back of your mind. But obviously, your legs, you need those to hike. So taking care of your ankles, making sure you're knowing where you're stepping. I like to kind of rock hop as I step. And that could be kind of risky. It's definitely bit me several times where I've slipped or the rocks moved or whatever. So those are kind of risks that I'm taking just out of kind of making the hike more interesting to me. But I've kind of strengthened my ankles and I'm kind of more ready for that. I
yeah,
definitely wouldn't suggest someone that hasn't hiked ever doing a 5 mile hike and hopping from rock to rock because you're gonna hurt your ankle. It takes a little bit of strengthening to kind of build up to be able to kind of take those rolls of your ankle and it not twist it or anything. So yeah, making sure that you're not twisting your ankles, breaking your legs. Obviously, you're gonna stick to a nice pair of hiking boots. Uh, that's a preference for a lot of people, but for me, that keeps my ankle from rolling too much. Um, Obviously, going out there with plenty of water, you need to make sure you have enough. There's not going to be a water source you're going to be able to filter um, unless you're in an area that just is filled with streams and stuff. But generally, you're not going to be running into a bunch of streams to be able to pull from. So, um, yeah, outside of that, um, walking, I like to walk cliffs. I get up on the edge of some pretty high places, um, and kind of assessing what those rocks are doing there, not making a foolish hop onto a rock that looks like it's held up by a couple pieces of dirt, you know.
Yeah.
So it's fun to do. I like to do it. It definitely can be done safely, and it's just a matter of kind of reading the area and kind of getting a feel for it, getting some experience with it.
You were talking about mountain lions and bears and stuff. My dream is to spot a mountain lion at Guadalupe Mountains. I
Yeah.
There's we've been out, like it snowed that night, and we're starting our hikes at 3 in the morning because I mean almost every hike we do in Guadalupe we start, if it's 3:30 then we're probably a little bit late in the morning. And so it just snowed, and we're out in the backcountry, and you see these big paw prints, and man, I get so excited. And how often do you hear about a mountain lion or a bear attack in Arizona?
Never.
Yeah,
Never. Yeah. It's very those animals, if they're near people, then they are used to the people, not necessarily in a way that they're comfortable with them, but more in a way that they aren't curious about them. So
yeah,
if you run into a curious or defensive bear or mountain lion, then they might advance towards you, they might attack. But if you're just walking through, they're trying to not be seen by you. They're not trying to come attack you. So um, you're generally kind of a non-threat to them, so they're not worried about running from you, but they will generally kind of hide out of sight and just you won't know
yeah.
they were there. Sure, I've been spotted by them multiple times.
Oh, I hope that I've been spotted by them.
Yeah.
I that's just, and my hiking buddy Henning, he was a Marine sniper, so he has the scopes, and
Hmm.
we always talk about just getting in the backcountry, setting up camp, and just getting up on a ridge and just spend the whole dusk and dawn part of the day and just
Hmm.
be using the scope and try to find them. Um, you know, the episode about Washington, one of my best friends, John, was on, and he said mountain lion attacks. He goes, it doesn't really happen a lot. He goes, even like in Mount Rainier, there's bears even, all over the place. He goes, I don't think there's ever been an attack. He goes, he's run into some bears and got between the mother and the cub, and of course she's
Hmm.
bluff charging and stuff. And he goes, one thing about mountain lions, if they're going to attack you, you'll never know. Like,
Yeah.
they're so stealthy that they're going to come from behind, catch you in the neck.
Hmm.
Um, and then he goes, bears, all his experience, you're going to know that they're coming at you. You're going to know that they're there. And so I've seen bear in Big Bend, and it was funny. I had my second youngest son with me, and we were on the Windows Trail. And so there's a mother and her cub, and she's probably, I don't know, 40 yards off the trail, and she's digging around and stuff. And we're just walking, and I don't even realize there's a bear right there. And this guy yells, he goes, "Hiker, there's a bear to your right." And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, to your right, there's a bear." And I just looked down, and yeah, she's right there. And when he was walking, she ran right in front of him. Like they startled each other, and she took off. And so my son's kind of like panicking. He's like, "Dad, what are we gonna do?" I'm like, I don't know what you're gonna do. I can outrun you." And he's
Yeah.
like, "What?" Yeah. But yeah, it was an experience that I I didn't I don't okay, I don't know that I would ever look at it as like, "Oh my God, I'm in danger," but that never
Hmm.
even crossed my mind. It was more like, "Oh my God, this is the most incredible experience of my life," type, feeling. And yeah, I'm sure if she would have started hooting and hollering at me and coming towards me, it'd have been a different story. But
Yeah.
that was just spectacular. And they say in Guadalupe Mountains, their black bear has started to come down. Um, in that area, I've never seen. Maybe I think at one time we saw some prints that with because they're not retracting their claws, so you could see
Mm-hmm.
the print in the claw. So we were like, okay, maybe that's bear. But we were in the Tejas campsite, and you're down in this canyon. So you go up Tejas Trail. You top out at probably about 7,000 feet. Start, or maybe a little bit more, and you start hiking, and then you kind of drop down on the backside of this canyon. They call it the bowl. It kind of like goes around, and I'm in the tent. I can't sleep, and off in this canyon, I hear this woof, woof, and it went on for about 10 minutes. And at first, it sounded like a dog. You know how you hear dogs off in the distance
Yeah.
barking, but it was just a woof. And so I know that was a bear, and man, I got so excited,
Mm-hmm.
like just to listen to it. And I was actually so excited that I forgot to wake everybody up and say, "Man, just listen." But it was I wouldn't even be able to honestly guess how far away, but you could tell it was far away, but you could just hear it huffing in the
Awesome.
distance, and I was so it was actually, just really spectacular. And then I asked everybody the next morning, I'm like, "Man, did you hear that bear?" And they're like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Ah, I should have woke you guys up." But like for 10 minutes, it just about every 30 seconds to a minute ish, it would make that hoof, hoof. And oh yeah, I was on cloud nine.
Yeah.
And there's a lady there named Pam, and I always call her Ranger Pam. And she's like in her 70s. And she's always involved in rescues or fatalities at the park. And she's a volunteer
Mm-hmm.
SARS, rescue person. And so I just call her Ranger Pam. And I don't know, for I don't know how many years, I always try to find her. So I have my hiking planned, and when I get to the park, I'll go to the visitor center, and I'll ask, you know, where will Pam be for the next few days? Because she rescues people like twisted
Mm-hmm.
ankles. They run out of water. I mean, she's hiked. The last time I talked to her was in October. She was just about to do her 267th hike on the Guadalupe Peak Trail.
Yeah.
And so every time I talk to her, it's like we kind of like, okay, what's been going on? Like, because she gives me all the gossip, not gossip, but like all the rescues and stuff that she's
Yeah.
been involved with that you don't hear about in the publications.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was two climbers that were trying to climb up the face of El Capitan, and they're brothers. One fell, and the other guy was stuck like up on this ledge about like this big, for 12 to 18 hours, and they had to bring in a
Wow.
rope team and rescue him. So you get to hear about all that kind of stuff, and a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff is not public knowledge. So it's exciting. I love talking to her. So we're talking, I find her, and I'm like, "Oh, Pam," and we're talking about mountain lions, and she goes, she's seen like three or four, and I don't know how many years she's been at the park. So we're talking, and somehow she's asking me about Mr. Barry, and how, because I try to keep up with him, make how's he doing, what hikes he's doing. And he was a gentleman that was lost at Guadalupe Mountains for like 5 days. 4 days he didn't have water, and I think 5 days he was going on with no food. And so we talk about, because she was part of his rescue. She was in the helicopter that came down and rescued him. And so we talk about him and stuff, and somehow we got on to, she was talking about a rescue that she had. And I was like, "Man, that sounds like that movie," and I can't remember the movie. And she's like, "Yeah, Infinite Storm." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the movie. It sounds like." She goes, "That is the rescue." And then
Yeah.
she shows me her name badge, and I'm like, "You're the Pam?" And she's like, yeah." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're like a superhero." So, it's just funny, like that. Yeah, I mean, okay. All the people that rescue and risk their lives for hikers and stuff are superheroes, but they made a movie about her, and so I was like,
Yeah.
I never, I never told myself like I could care less about movie stars, sports athletes. I give two shits. But like her, I was like, oh, can I have a picture? And God, can't believe this. Anyway, so yeah, she sees mountain lions out there all the time, but also like it was just neat to have someone of that experience and that like she used to do this in the White Mountains, one of the most dangerous mountain ranges in the United States, rescuing and search and all this stuff, and she's out our state park, our national park, and I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so I was geeking out. Oh, Pam,
That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, she was, and she is like so humble. Like, she just, just stop talking about, this. She just wants to go out and she just wants to go out and save people. So yeah, she
Yeah.
rocks. So, how do you think people should prepare um, for encounters with wildlife? I mean, outside of just knowing that it could happen, like,
Hmm.
is there anything that they like? Please don't tell me they should wear bear bells because I think that's
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
would be so annoying just to hear a bell. But like John was talking about, like when he's in an area, especially in the Olympics, that he just every few minutes he just yells, hey
Hmm.
bear." And so, what do you think are some ways that maybe someone that's not used to the area that could potentially kind of, I don't know, make sure they don't end up in some of these situations with wildlife?
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today and stay tuned for our next episode where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.